sports fans? Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I am literally ecstatic, and I'm excited for the up-and-coming NFL season with tonight, preseason. It's going to be a lot of fun from here, but we are also stacked with a heck of a lineup here tonight. Former NFL pros, Nolan Carroll, A.J. Johnson. Coming up and onto the show, we're going to be discussing a lot of things happening up and into the NFL. Appreciate everybody for being here live from Denver, Colorado, the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your day. Like I said, super ecstatic, and there's just a ton of stories to really get into. But Nolan Carroll right up around the corner here. But I do want to start with this because this has been quite a discussion going around in Cleveland Browns camp. So tomorrow, you're going to get a chance to see, and what I've been talking with everybody, including my co-host, about Shedeur Sanders. You are finally going to get a chance to see what I'm talking about when it comes to a quarterback going through adversity and is ready for his moment. And so we know Shedeur Sanders, he has had incidences where there was just speeding tickets. Okay. We were young kids. We remember that, we wanted to test out the engines and cars. It happens. I mean, these are young kids, but we all understand that there's a certain structure you want to keep them consistent in. But Shedeur Sanders has been through a lot of this. I mean, being here up in Colorado and dealing with an offensive line that hardly gave him the protection and then having to throw accurate throws as quick as possible because all these pass rushers are coming in left and right. And then to give him an offensive line with what Cleveland has, where we know Joel Bitonio is on his last year until he retires. But Shedeur Sanders, we're hearing a lot of the buzzes up and in camp. He's been outperforming a lot of all the quarterbacks right now. Even Joe Flacco, who we know is kind of on the tail end of his prime. And then there's, Dylan Gabriel, the other young quarterback they drafted, and then Kenny Pickett. And then they just signed Tyler Huntley. So Shedeur Sanders is doing the thing where most of the youngsters, when you basically are perceived something, and this happens all the time up in the media, they just will tell you, I don't really kind of like his character and style. I don't think he's going to make it up into the NFL. This is your opportunity to prove yourself. I mean, I've been saying this over and over again. For Shedeur to have a completion percentage over 70 with an average O-line at best, and yet dealing with a lot of the pressures in the Big 12 to come into the NFL. And you know what? I've been saying this all the time. Sometimes a lot of these schools that you don't hear a whole lot, like your USCs or your Bamas or your LSUs, not a lot of these big-time schools, when you don't hear a ton of that, and you get a gem like a quarterback, I mean, we've seen this all the time. Patrick Mahomes, Texas Tech, Josh Allen, Wyoming. Some of these kids have a type of adversity within themselves that they're ready for the challenge. Josh Allen wasn't perfect when he came up and into the league, but once he got involved with the right coaches, stability, structure, and then turning some of those mistakes into now completions and touchdowns, it makes a difference. Shedeur is going to be proving himself tomorrow. And I'm going to be really excited, and you all are going to see right before your eyes what I'm talking about. I think he is going to prove himself, even if he's quarterback 4 or 5 on the depth chart. That's not going to matter none. You're going to start with where a lot of these rookies are, at the bottom, and work your way up to the top. Everybody knows that. So Shedeur, I'm crossing my fingers that I don't expect him to ball out in a preseason game, but I expect him to change the narrative of what most of the media will tell you about Shedeur Sanders. That's what I'm expecting more than anything. Accurate quarterback, steal of the draft in the 5th round, and proving Cleveland will have their franchise quarterback. All right, so our guest, he spent 8 years in the NFL, knows a thing or two when it comes to facing adversity, not to mention winning it also all together as a team and as champions. And so joining us here up and on the show to give us his feedback and from his experiences, former NFL corner Nolan Carroll. He comes on up and onto the show. Well, Nolan, I mean, you've experienced this, coming up and into the league, right? And everybody comes from the bottom and work their way up and into the top. I mean, it's kind of got to be very well said when it comes to Shedeur Sanders' situation, because Cleveland, I mean, they got all the quarterbacks right now to see who's going to be the guy to start week 1. I think it's just safe to say when you are just as an average person, when you are there on the spotlight and you're ready to prove yourself, you just got to go out and have fun and go be yourself and prove to people why you deserve and belong here in the NFL, right?
Yeah, I just think it comes down to really honestly, Shedeur just has to play the game. He's got to let the game come to him. He can't try and outplay Flacco, and I don't even think they're playing. I think Flacco's sitting, Gabriel's got the hamstring injury, and Kenny Pickett's also sitting, and it's Tyler Huntley and him. So he's going to get a bulk of the snaps during this game against the Carolina Panthers. And this thing he has to do is just, now he's in total control to be as free as he wants to be, like he was when he was playing in Colorado. And I think that's the best thing. He's just been so slandered ever since he got drafted, and just coming into a camp, he's a 5th-round pick, but yet you're reporting on him like he's a top 10 pick. So just the dissection of his everyday life, his every throw, his individual drills, that takes a toll on you. And for him, I think he's finally happy to just go out and play, knowing that he's going to be starting the game. He's probably going to get a full half, if not a little bit more. They just signed Tyler Huntley like a couple of days ago, so he doesn't know the playbook all the way. So it gives him a great opportunity to really get the bulk of the game and show the nation who he is, because that's going to be the highlight game of the preseason come tomorrow. So the biggest thing is to just do what he's been doing. The media will always try and, this is their job during camp, is to always dissect every single thing. But I think the best thing for him is he has been practicing well. He's been practicing well not only against his teammates, but also when they had joint practices with the Carolina Panthers. He's been doing that as well. So just putting it together is his biggest thing on Friday. And, who knows what's going to happen. They got 6 quarterbacks if you can include Deshaun Watson. So it's just a circus. His biggest thing is making sure that he's putting himself in the best position possible to either be the starter, understanding how to be a great backup, or if he's going to get traded, at least raise that value, because anything can happen. And especially with them, you never know with the Cleveland Browns. They're kind of unorganized. So if he plays well, I think he'll start to get more interest, because they see him as, a quality backup if something were to happen to somebody around the league. And you never know, it's the first preseason game for most guys, so you never know what's going to happen, for the next month leading up into the season.
Yeah. No, well said. Absolutely. I do want to get into the bulk of it. So let's start with the Miami Dolphins. To me personally, this has to be the year, Nolan, where everything has to come together for them. I feel like Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel, they're fighting for their jobs. And I think initially, we know what the Teron Armstead thing with him retiring was kind of a hit. So I'm not sure with the left tackle what that's going to look like. But I am a bit curious about the defense, because to me, Nolan, I'll just say it like this. I mean, I've been to Miami before, going on vacation. It's sunny, bikini season 24/7. And the Dolphins really have a lot of speed. They're like that Lamborghini that you'll drive around on the freeways, and they're built for that. But sometimes I want to see a little more of that brute strength in defense, where you're physical, you're fighting for every down, you're fighting for a possession. So, I mean, for the Dolphins, this has to be the year that they got to get this right and at least punch their ticket in the playoffs, because the AFC, it's wildly exciting. And so, this is where these guys really have to come together in this, right?
Yeah, the window to get to the playoffs for the Dolphins keeps getting slimmer. For them, the hardest thing, honestly, is finding the defensive mindset to go out there and play well every single week. And for them in the back end, they got rid of all their starters and had two guys that just got injured the first couple of days of camp. So they're looking to find their identity in the back end. I'm not too worried about the front seven. I think those guys will be pretty good. I know they had some injuries last year. We were limping across the finish line, but ultimately this all comes down to Tua. Tua is the one that makes this entire offense go, and it's been very rare. I haven't really seen this as much, other than maybe Aaron Rodgers or maybe Tony Romo before he got hurt. But when an offense is tailored around the quarterback, to his specifics, to his knowledge, to his checks, that's Tua all the way. It's groove for him. That's why there's so much speed all over the place. And you really identify it. Yes, we got Tyreek. Yes, we got Waddle. But they have a great running game as well. So stable of backs they have, even though Mostert is now departed. I mean, still got guys. The best thing is to make sure you keep Tua protected. I think when he was in camp, he's just on fire. And he has a different mindset now. And I think he understands a sense of urgency as well, too, because he's never really been this vocal. All the years that I've just being a Dolphins alum and being a part of the team, you never really seen him be that vocal as far as progressing that team to the next level. It's always been, can you produce? Or, how is your concussions? How is your health? Should you sign that contract? It's always been those type of questions. And, now he's getting on Tyreek Hill to be more accountable and being a team leader. Now he's getting on his own line. Now he's working better with Coach McDaniels and understanding, hey, what do I need to do to be better with my team? Not necessarily producing stats, because we see he can do that. So the main thing for him is understanding not to be hurt. Stay on the field, be efficient. You're going to have to fight Buffalo. You're going to have to win that division through Buffalo. But also, too, you also have to compete with the Patriots. Who knows how they're going to be, but they have improved. And then the Jets will figure out how that's going to go. If Justin Fields is going to be the guy he was when he was in Pittsburgh in those first 4 games, that's why the Jets signed him, because they feel like he has that potential. So it's just more of they have to win the division first before they think about competing against Kansas City, trying to compete against San Diego, trying to compete against Houston. And the biggest thing is let's try and win this division. Let's at least go 4-2 in the division. Let's see if we can win 10, 11 games. Let's position ourselves so that when we do have to play Kansas City, we got to play San Diego, LA Chargers now, if you're getting that confused. At least they have some type of home field advantage if they can, because the biggest thing that I see with, I forgot to mention Cincinnati Bengals as well, that whole AFC North, the biggest thing is understanding home field advantage. And Miami does not play well in the cold. And most of the teams that are very well are in the cold. So I think for them is to try and win the division, be seated high enough to where they get home field advantage. They have at least one game at home. And then from there, you see what happens. I think if they can just put on a string of good games and continue to stay in the top. And, when it comes down for those top matchups, because they have some pretty good teams that they're playing this year out of conference, if they can do well, they position themselves with more confidence and ultimately be able to get over that hump of trying to beat one of those teams from the AFC North or AFC West or even AFC South. Who knows? But they are in position. But, the one thing I do know about potential is potential always gets beat. And Miami always has the potential, but they've never been able to put it together. So answering your question, yes, this is a pivotal year for them. And if they can't produce, honestly, I just don't see Mike McDaniel being there for the entire season. If things start to go awry, I think if they lose 3 or 4 games, you start questioning upper management. But, if they can get it together and do what they need to do and execute consistently, I think they'll be pretty good this year.
I agree. So let's shift to the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. This roster from top to bottom, and just the management in itself, is just so well run. Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. These guys, professionals, they understand it and they know what they're trying to build. Yeah. Last year, I'd said this on my show, was when I watched Quinion Mitchell play as well as he did coming out of Toledo, I was like, I went on the record. I said, this guy reminds me of when Tariq Woolen came in as a late rounder and he was just a ball hawk. He was everywhere. He got great coverage, a guy that, really, really read the receivers one-on-one. And then you pair him up with someone like Cooper DeJean. And it's like this Eagles secondary and even just playing alongside with it. You've played on a really great defense, even in your tenure there in Philly. But, this is a strong culture, and they're all about physicality. They're all about getting turnovers. I mean, what did you think of that secondary and the defense? Because to me, they ended up getting a lot of pressures in that Super Bowl. And then not to mention, they were fighting for every possession to keeping the ball on their side. So it allowed Saquon, Jalen Hurts, and everybody else to do their job. I mean, what did you think of that defense from last year and then coming into this year?
Yeah, I think the defense was very impressive. I mean, the thing that I see on defense, and when you watch film, and when I used to watch film, was how guys are flying around to the football. What was their tenacity? What was their pursuit like? What was their communication like? And I did an interview last year about them, and the one thing that I noticed with Cooper and Quinn is they were communicating pre-snap. Like guys were constantly communicating, and that's hard for young guys. I know, especially for me, if I was getting locked in, I'm locked in. Sometimes you forget to communicate, but it was just across the board. And, they had vets that were just helping. CJ, Big Play Slay. I mean, Blankenship, making sure guys were just always communicating. And, I think this year is not going to be as much of a struggle because I believe those vets that were in the room for those couple of years, even I'm going back to 22, 23, and 24, when those guys were in the room and they had Ringo and, you have Blankenship, like those guys learned through CJ, they learned through Slay, and even Malcolm, he comes back to the building too. So they're getting all this experience and all this knowledge. And, up front, it's always going to be the same. Guys that are getting after big, athletic, SEC type guys, that's what they still have. And knowing that as a defensive back, when you have guys that are just going to get after the quarterback, you begin to understand the ball has to come out. Whether it's a deep shot or whether it's quick game, it's got to come out. And the best thing that I would say about their defense has the linebacker play has been amazing. I mean, Vaughn was amazing, and now to get Campbell, draft him in the first round and pair him with Vaughn, then you got Nolan Smith. I mean, the combination of young guys that they've been able to incorporate in this defense and get them playing early, the Eagles were looking long-term here. They weren't looking for an immediate fix. They knew it was going to take guys time to progress, and that's how Philly's always been. And I remember just dating it back when I was playing with Brandon Graham. He wasn't the starter on our defense. It was Trent Cole. And as Trent Cole was on his way out, he was always giving tips to BG. And eventually, BG ends up turning the corner. Trent Cole gives him the crown. And he's the guy that played for 15 years. And who did he give that to? Nolan Smith. So you look at that from that perspective and understand it is a lineage. And the way how he has set it up has been amazing. He doesn't just look at the athletic ability. He looks at how are you going to be as a teammate? How are you going to be in the organization? How are you going to be in the community? And those things always trickle down. And the great thing about Philly is they have definitive alpha leaders. You got A.J. Brown, Saquon, Jalen, Lane. They know they're the guys. And then, you got the secondary guys. I don't want to call them secondary, but in their own right, if you put them on another team, they're captains too. Cam Jurgens, Zach Vaughn. Like these guys could be team leaders. I'm not just talking about offense and defense. And I think that's what makes them special is the fact that they have so many important pieces and superstars on that team, and they only think about the team. And for them, the games just looked easy last year. It just looked like we know our mindset, we know our mentality. We're going to go out and be consistent. We have plays that you're not going to stop. We have players that you're not going to stop, and that's just their mentality. And it's hard to beat a team like that. It's hard to play 4 quarters with a team that's ready to go into overtime at any given moment. So, when you have somebody that's willing to go beyond their limits and want to win, they said it. AJ said it 2 days ago. The Lombardi Trophy is not loyal to anybody. And Jalen saying, "I don't wear my ring because that was last year's accomplishments." Their mindset is already on this year. And when you have people that can think that way, it's going to be very dangerous for somebody to stumble. But I will say this: you're going to get everybody's best shot every single week, and that's what's going to be the test for Philly. Everybody knew from 22 was a letdown. Going to 23, they ran out of gas. Going to 24 was redemption. Now 25 is the target on your back. And how are you going to respond when you do have a game that's bad? How are you going to respond when you have a couple that's bad? So I think for them, that is the main thing is understanding last year was last year. We're going to get everybody's best shot no matter what the record is. And they come out of that in the tough NFC. I believe they can make another run again because they do have the most important piece. That's the quarterback, running back, and they have a great defense and a great coaching staff. And when you have that all together, they're playing as one, it's really tough to beat.
Yeah, they're going to continue to be a problem in the NFC, and I just enjoy watching them and just how tough they play. I do want to shift to Dallas. So, okay, this Micah Parsons situation is just really unique for a few reasons because I love Micah, and I think he's super explosive and somebody that is really a game changer up and on defense. Now, we know a lot of people bring out of like, well, playoffs a little different. I'm like, we'll get there. But, you know, you've been around in this building. You've experienced Jerry Jones and the way that he's really kind of, you know, handled a lot of his business. Now, listen, I'm the kind that I'm like, you know, if I'm at that age and I've enjoyed the accomplishments, I mean, Texas, they love their football, they love their oil. So I get it. You know, it's tough. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, both sides are going to come to an agreement up from here. But, I mean, after seeing TJ Watt get his money, Myles Garrett, and then who knows what's going to happen with this Trey Hendrickson situation, you're looking at Dallas and you're like, well, I'm paying Dak and I'm paying CD high premium money. It's going to be a little difficult to squeeze this one in, but I mean, how do you kind of how do you perspect this situation? And is this kind of something that will be solvable for Dallas and for both parties?
Yeah, it would be solvable if Jerry just stops talking. You know, I think it's the best thing is for him to really sit down with Micah and his agent together and get this deal done. And from what I know, when Micah posted that post, it wasn't about the money. It was more of he wanted to be loyal to the fans. He wanted to be loyal to the team because that's the team that drafted him. And the way Jerry's playing hardball, it happens before. And he's done this. And he butts heads with guys. It's just what it is. And I think it's more about he doesn't want guys to be higher than the star. And when you look at with the situation with Dak wasn't really in the media talking about getting a contract done. He just said it'll get done when it gets done, and it got done. And same thing with CD. It got done when it got done. And I think the thing with Micah is, yeah, you voice your frustration, rightfully so, because you want to be there. It's not like you want to leave or they're trying to force you out. It's just more, it's business. And they're playing hardball, and this is really the first time he's experiencing this because he's a first-round pick. He didn't have to worry about it. The way he was balling was just immediate success. And, you know, the fact of them trying to say, well, in the playoffs, everybody's different in the playoffs, and they know you're the guy. So guess what? You're going to get doubled, and they're going to try and find something else. And they have a season of work to understand what your tendencies are, what they aren't, what worked well, what doesn't. So getting to the playoffs, you can say, hey, try and turn it on. But would you say that about Michael Strahan when he had Houston and Miura and he had all those guys? No, it's just, hey, if he's doing that, other guys got to step up. He can't do everything. He lines up everywhere on the defensive line. He even drops it back in coverage. So he does everything that you want him to do. And it's just, I'd say it's just like that. It's a circus there. And it starts with the head honcho, and he's the guy that calls the shots. But, you know, hopefully if he truly wanted to win, honest in my opinion, he would have tried to find a way to pay him. He'd have tried to find a way to make it work behind the scenes, make Micah understand, look, I'm going to get it done. It's just whether it might be a salary cap, might not have the numbers. Number might be too high. And they're like, hey, look, we got to find a way to get through this. And it's more on us than it is you. But if you trust us, we'll get it done right. And we'll say that in the media. All those things could have been avoided. And I've seen it with guys that have had contract disputes and situations. It takes away from your game tremendously. And a guy like him where it's up in limbo, you're not going to play the same way. You're not going to be playing for the team. You're more so going to be playing to prove yourself to the owner that, hey, you need to pay me. And then when he's playing well, it's just going to go right back to the same thing. So it's going to be this culmination of just every single media circus all the time. Hey, you played well. Did you talk to Jerry? You played bad. This is what Jerry said. You played well again. Jerry, should he pay him? It's always going to be like that. And you know, if they're losing, then it just makes it even worse. So I just think they got a lot of things that's going on behind the scenes. And I've seen it before. It comes down to hardball with him. And the biggest thing is just go out and prove your value. And you know, if he's talking to other teams that want to trade him, or they're looking for trade partners, at least make your value amazing. And then whatever team he does go to, if he does get traded, you just got to go all the way out, man. Prove to the organization that they shouldn't have done that. But I don't think he's in the wrong in any stretch of the imagination because he's given us a timeline and he's been very patient. A lot of the questions about his contracts going at the end of last year, he's quietly just said, you know what, I'm working with Jerry. I'm trying to get it done. So hopefully they do get something done in the season. But if that conversation has been severed, he just has to go and play at this point and prove his worth.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I can feel it, especially when you're watching teams like Philly and then Washington. And I mean, we'll see what the Giants look like, but the last thing you want to be is this situation don't get done. And then next thing you know, these teams are going to start climbing up and into the top. And then you're sitting there going, all right, we got to figure something out from here. An interesting question here, because we're going to see this kid. And from your experience at your position, this is going to be a unique situation to where none of us have ever seen this up and into the NFL. But Travis Hunter, wide receiver and corner. We've seen the amount of reps. Jacksonville came out with it about the reps he'll take at receiver and corner. We know it's challenging, and, you kind of push your bodies to the limit. I mean, as athletes, you're making sure that you're physically and then mentally and emotionally healthy. But then at the same time, you're multitasking all around it. You're thinking offense, you're thinking defense. From even just plugging in your experience up from here and then just seeing this kid, what are kind of some things you point out from here? And can this be a situation that can work? And could it impact maybe future other college players that could step into this type of situation?
Yeah, I believe it can be done. And I look at guys that kind of paved the way before him, Charles Woodson, Champ Bailey. When I was playing, it was more Devin Hester. I know was drafted as a corner. They moved him over to receiver. But Antonio Cromartie, people forget, he played receiver for a few snaps. Deion Sanders, obviously, where it derived from. And then also, too, Patrick Peterson was the same way. So when it comes to that aspect of a defense preparing for a game, it's an extra player that you have to be alert for, that they're going to try and get the ball. But the also caveat to that is it's the snap count. They got to be aware of a snap count. And I don't know how many people don't realize this, but plays in an NFL game, most of the time, on the high end, you might be getting 65 plays as a defense. And, if you go into overtime, might be a little bit higher. So think about it. If you're getting 65 and the offense has 65, that's close to 120 plays in an 18-week span. And you never know what's going to happen, but I do know it's a higher risk for you to get injured. It's a higher risk for you to get banged up. And that's the interesting thing to see is what the snap count is going to be for him. Is he going to get 15 on offense? Is he going to play everything on defense? Or there's only going to be 5 on offense? Like, you got to see, and I think that it's just the Jaguar staff, and I know they've talked about it before they drafted him, is just understanding where can we put this guy on offense to make him the most effective with as little plays as possible. Let's not try and put the whole game on his shoulders because they still have Trevor Lawrence. So, and they paid him a lot of money. So at the end of the day, the game has to ultimately go on his back, and they got to find a way to get their star players the ball. And, if you can do that in 10, 15 plays and he can still be effective on the defense and also get the ball back because he is playing corner, I mean, that's twofold. That's an impact player. And I think if you see it work well this year, there's going to be more people that are going to be looking for those guys. I coach here now in Jacksonville. I'm able to see them, but also, too, when I'm recruiting, guys are more two-way players than you believe. And I think because they have more confidence now, knowing that the load on them, they're able to do it. It's not just some type of fantasy where they hope they can do it and, they're delusional. He's actually doing that on both sides of the ball very well. He's been doing this since high school. So it's just more of snap count. If they can understand snap count on offense and defense and that ratio is even and they're monitoring his body every single week, I think it'll probably be one of the most amazing things that has happened in the NFL to understand that you can understand an offensive playbook. You can also understand the defensive playbook and know how to differentiate your mindset when you're going out on the field, but also understanding, too, the secrets of the other side of the ball. And I think that's where he comes into play, where he can really show himself out. And just from the highlights that I've seen and the practices that I've seen, he's playing at another level. And I just think because he's getting so much information, he's able to apply it on both sides. And he's able to fail fast and understand what works and what doesn't work. And just be interesting and fun to see. But, I know he's having fun. I think it's great for the organization. And, we'll see. This might be the template that every other team uses because it's a copycat league. And, if he has success, watch other teams start looking for guys like Travis Hunter.
Absolutely. So, last question here, and I'm glad that we tapped into it. Mentioning about coaching. I mean, I got to ask you because it's got to be one of the best feelings, personally, to where you left everything on the field for 8 years to still be on the field and then to share your experience from a coaching aspect. I think it's fantastic. I always am always give, the best of luck to a lot of these former players being in the coaching roles, because it's so important, because you're training and you're preparing the next generation of these players. I mean, how's that feeling got to be like for you? Like when you first started and where you are now, to see these kids grow. I at least for our young audiences here, to have that experience, like what that's got to be like, and then what the expectation is for what they carry to then move forward the minute that they become adults and they're out there and they're giving it their all as the next future players.
Yeah, for me, I never wanted to coach, by the way. I just saw the demanding hours outside of practice and being in the building, because I was in there for 15 hours. So I could only imagine coaches. Some coaches sleep in their office. Some coaches not getting home till midnight. They got to be back in the building at 4 a.m. And, just thinking about that as a player, like, man, I could never have that life. And, I don't. It's just the hours are still long. I'm still putting in long hours, but it's not long hours for me. And it's more so understanding, man, I have all this information of just knowledge, of not just X's and O's, because X's and O's is like the most basic. It's more of insight. It's more of communication, understanding how to be a leader, what your team needs, how to practice, how to meet, how to prepare, what to watch on film, and giving that advice from the top level. It's, for me, it's very gratifying, because I know I'm able to break it down in a way where I can teach them. And not everybody knows how to do that. They only know how to do it from their perspective as a player. I've had so many different perspectives, whether it's Bill Parcells, Ralph Friedgen, Doug Peterson, Chip Kelly, Lou Anarumo, Al Harris, Lou Adams, Kevin Core. I could go on and on. Mike Nolan. I got Jim Schwartz. There's so many coaches that I've talked to and had conversations with about how we need to do certain things as a unit and how that's going to affect the other side of the ball, how that's going to affect the game, talking about situations. And it's just something that's not taught at the high school level as much. And it's not the coach's fault. They only know what they only know. And as you get up in higher levels, obviously the exposure enhances. And, for me to be able to play as long as I did, it was more so because I leaned on my coach's insight. What do I need to do better? What things can I do to make my teammates better? And, you apply it immediately. That's what allows you to be better. And when you're able to understand what you do on the field and off the field, then you start understanding how football teaches a lot about life and how you can be disciplined, how you can be focused, how you need to just understand how to do the things right every single day, no matter how hard they are. That is what allows you to be successful. That's why you see the guys like Aaron Donald, you see guys like Darrelle Revis, the Tom Brady's. People think they just get out of bed and they're just athletic. It takes practice. You have to understand your technique. You have to understand your limitations. You have to understand what you need to do to overcome those limitations. You have to know how to push your limits all the time. And you have to know also too that when you do fail, learn from it. It's not the place that you're going to stay. You have so much more potential ahead of you. And those are the things that I like to give back to those kids, because the gap between being great and then just being legendary is not that much. And it comes down to the most simple things. It's not being 1,000-yard receiver. It's how you got those 1,000 yards. It's not being a quarterback that throws for 4,000 yards. It's how you got those 4,000 yards. And when you think about it that way, what are the things that you are doing daily? What habits are you creating to make sure that when the lights are the brightest, you're performing and everybody sees it as just another routine play? But for you, this has been countless reps of you always working until you can never get it wrong. And when you teach them that way, it's like the light bulb comes on and they start fulfilling their potential. And, Ralph Friedgen, like I was mentioning before, potential will get you beat. And if you're always resting on what you could be, you'll never really amount to it, because you'll always just be complacent. It's always going to be there, but you're never going to want to work to get there. And just in today with college football, kids want everything instant. They want it right now. They want to do a little bit of work for right now. And, when you break it down and let them see, hey, this is what you need to do to be successful, you're going to reap the benefits because you really put in the time to do it.
Absolutely, man. And listen, best of the knowledge there and the experiences. I'm always get excited to when, I see these kids and they put in the work ethic, and at the same time, they're learning a lot from their peers and they're learning from a lot of their mentors. And what you're doing, man, is absolutely just, it's so inspiring for a lot of kids. And at the same time, it's preparing them, up and in for life. So I wish the best of luck for you in this journey, man. And it's just incredible. Nolan, really just an absolute pleasure having you up and onto the show and giving your insights, man. Appreciate you for stopping on by. Take care of yourself, and let's see how this NFL season really pans out. It's going to be really exciting up from here, my man.
Yeah, I think it will be. Thank you for having me on the show, Jake.
Absolutely, man. Take care of yourself.
Take care.
Yeah, I love that. And the fact of the matter is like, we've always grown up with, idols, guys that we've, watched on our television every single day. And to be able to learn that experience, gain something from it, but then applying it is just incredible. But, I agree with it because the whole entire thing is like, we know Jerry he obviously can't go a day without being up on media. He has to be on the radio. He's got to be up and on television. And, the thing is that the Micah Parsons situation, I hope they get a deal done. I really do. Because at the end of the day, you're going to lose your star pass rusher. You're hoping that, because my thing is that if in fact a trade happens, you got that young kid from Boston College, Donovan Azaraku, who I've heard a lot of really good things about. But if you don't get this right, and now you've been pretty much lost the mentor for Donovan, and then moving forward, it's just like, do we even know if this kid is going to pop at some point? So it's going to be interesting. Really, really, really good. I loved that interview. I really, really did. Nolan, with a lot of great experience and knowledge, it's that was awesome. I absolutely loved it. All right, good show. I had a lot of stuff to talk about up from here, folks, but we always leave our mark here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, and much like a company that leaves their mark since 1953, Maker's Mark has become arguably the best tasting Kentucky straight bourbon for years, and they've left their mark in arguably the best distillery. And once you pour up a glass from their aging cask and the flavor, distillery, everything, a remarkable craft as to why Maker's Mark has left their mark in the Kentucky straight bourbon industry. And much like here, we all love to leave our mark somewhere. Find it and leave your mark with Maker's Mark. Enjoy responsibly, 21 and over. Leave your mark with Maker's Mark. Grab yourself a bottle at your local.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
All right, so we know, the Dallas Cowboys are dealing with their situation with Micah Parsons, but another situation like we talked about in the last couple of days has been Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders. I've been telling everybody, look, I would not afford for Terry McLaurin to leave the building. Okay, I'd pay him. But I know a lot of people are skeptical about it because you don't want to pay him the hefty amount of money and feel like that you're going to be trapped on it afterwards. But here's the thing is, although Washington got Jaden Daniels and the rest is history from there and got him far to the NFC championship. But the only thing is that Terry McLaurin, before JD got there, he dealt with so many other quarterbacks and yet still found a way to be a mentor. And at the same time, I mean, you got to think about this. Terry McLaurin was a third-round wide receiver, okay? And he has more than shown a lot of his potential and everything that he's put together, which is why that, like, with Terry McLaurin, I'd pay him. But I get it. High premiums may seem expensive, but the only deal is that if you lose Terry McLaurin, you are now having to put the workload on who? Debo? Well, we all kind of saw what that looks like right now in San Francisco, and it honestly, it's an interesting situation. I feel like this could be solvable, but if a trade really does happen, then Washington, we know that they are getting, we know that they're obviously going in the right path. And this happens with a lot of teams. You'll feel like you're going up and into the right path, and then all of a sudden you have this fork in the road, and then it might change a bit. I mean, look, Jaden Daniels, it's a godsend for them. They were able to get their franchise quarterback after the last few quarterbacks they've dealt with in years, and then having to deal with Dan Snyder. Okay, so we know everything's uplifting, and it feels like it's on cloud nine for Washington fans, but you got to get this together. You got to end up getting this right. So if something doesn't quite happen, that's just going to be harder for Washington more than anything, and especially when you're dealing with Philadelphia, who clearly is going to continue to be a pain in the butt in the East. So I don't expect this to really linger on for very long. But it is certainly something that's going to be really, really interesting in the coming days. But I think they'll definitely get a deal done from here. Let's go ahead and tap into the news.
And now, here we go. Hey, everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
All right, so we got some news up from here, fresh out the Hot Press, and not good as we look at the Indianapolis Colts. It is already 21-9 against Baltimore. The Ravens are winning this here in halftime in preseason, but the story that happened that broke is quarterback Anthony Richardson departed from the preseason game after sustaining a finger injury in the first quarter. No timetable as far as a return at some point, but Daniel Jones is going to end up taking over at quarterback. and the play basically came out when David Ojabu ended up coming up with the sack, and I think it was just right up in an awkward position right on the finger. And so Anthony Richardson, he's hurt. He's going to be sidelined. This is just unfortunate for this young quarterback because they're hoping that this kid really does well, this year. And it's just really, really difficult. I don't even know how they're going to end up dealing with this, but it sounds to me Daniel Jones is going to be the nod, and he'll be the one up at quarterback. So we'll see. Colts will be looking interesting up in this. So another impactful hit as we're going on to the LA Chargers, and this is a hard hit up from here. But the LA Chargers had announced up at camp that the Chargers left tackle Rashawn Slater ended up rupturing a patellar tendon and is now going to be out for the entirety of the 2025 NFL season. This is tough, man, because the Chargers, they just paid Rashawn Slater and now suffering a ruptured patellar tendon. I've even got a chance to listen into the doctor that was talking about this, about a ruptured patellar tendon, and said usually a lot of players, percentage of them, don't quite have the same form when they come back. So that is going to be interesting. So Jim Harbaugh and company, I know they're thinking of it, but they're not completely drowning their heads in the situation. We know that they're going to be moving Joe Alt to left tackle, his normal position that he had at Notre Dame when he first got drafted, and they're going to move Trey Pipkins to the right. So it sounds to me that the offensive line will start with Alt at the left, and then probably mixtures of Jamari Salyer and Zion Johnson, then going Bradley Bozeman, the Mekhi Becton, and then right there with Trey Pipkins. So this is why, this is, first of all, the reason why the Jim Harbaugh drafted Joe Alt in the first place is because they take offensive line seriously. Once your star offensive lineman goes down, it's hard to at least for depth piece, to fill in the hole. That's why they drafted him, because they did not want to be in the curveball where now they're without their left tackle, and this is not going to work out well. So, and so that's the thing. And I do believe the Chargers are still going to be a threat in the AFC West. But it is going to be harder without Rashawn Slater involved. Really wish the best of luck in recovery. This is a difficult situation in an injury. You don't wish this upon anybody, but it really does. It really is depressing, to see that he got his payday, and then to go down with an injury and not being able to play this year is hard. Really, really hard. Final news story here. So we're shifting up to Pittsburgh because right now there's some activity that's been going on. And this is involving four-time All-Pro defensive tackle Cam Hayward, who is seeking a raise in a defensive market that has experienced a reset this offseason. Hasn't fully participated in practice yet this summer as he awaits a restructured contract that has not gotten done. So Hayward didn't dress for today's practice and declined interview requests through a team representative. He has 2 years remaining in his contract, with $14.75 million this season, and there's $13.45 that of that already have been earned as a roster bonus that'll be paid over the course of the season, and then $14.5 in 26. So this is why when I look at Pittsburgh, this is just an interesting situation here, because as much as I love I love this defense and how it's all put together, but they're kind of stuck. And in my opinion, they're once again becoming the team most paid on defense. Not entirely sure how they're going to attack the situation here, but to me, it's hard. I don't know how they're. I'm not quite sure how this is really going to go about them. But we know Cam Hayward is not getting any younger. And we know, too, that there's other players. In fact, you got the kicker, Chris Boswell, asking for a raise as well. So what what is going on? So Pittsburgh, yeah, they got an interesting thing. I'm not entirely sure. I think this is just going to be hopefully something they'll get done. But like I said, man, I don't know. I don't know how this is honestly going to end up. I don't know how it's going to end up looking like at some point, with all this. But hopefully they'll figure this out. But yeah, Pittsburgh, like I said, I don't see them becoming a playoff team. I think this is probably going to be their step back year. So it will be interesting. All right, that's the news.
And now, here we go. Everyone, it's story time. This is the Hot Press.
All right. I do want to discuss this because, going back to the Chargers situation. So we know that they're losing Rashawn Slater, the left tackle, for the entirety of the year with a ruptured patellar tendon. It's a crushing blow. But at the same time, the Chargers, this is why they drafted Joe Alt, because naturally played left tackle in college and then moved to the right tackle because Jim Harbaugh loves versatility. And these are offensive coaches who get offensive line. Okay? You could figure out the offensive line. When was the last time Mike Tomlin ever figured out an offensive line? I mean, you watched how a bunch of other teams or other coaches have tried to figure out offensive line. Defensive coaches tend to be defensive. And at the same time, you can't figure out offensive line right. That's going to take a toll on your quarterback. And it's going to take a toll on your offense completely because you won't even be able to score up the amount of points that are scored on an average because the pocket's collapsing. So, but we know the Chargers added up firepower when they ended up signing Keenan Allen. And so now he's back in the building for the Chargers. And what an exciting time, because this is a veteran receiver to mentor a lot of the youngsters like Keandre Lambert-Smith, who you saw in the preseason on last Thursday, and then watching Ladd McConkey. Everybody's all looking at that relationship, and the two of them, they're just basically alike. They focus on their technique and their footwork, and they're all about getting first downs. And then you got the youngster Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. So I think the Chargers doubling down upon their offensive weaponry is really what they needed. But we know that, like with the offensive line, this is why they went and addressed it in the first place. This is why I say this to my wife all the time when it comes to camping. I would rather go with than go without. These coaches and even Jim Harbaugh do the same thing. I would rather go with a hefty lineup of offensive linemen than go without, and now my quarterback's hurt, and then I can't figure out the rest of the offensive line, and now we're just stunk. That's literally what a lot of these coaches do. Sean McVay was able to figure out an offensive line. Sean Payton figures out an offensive line. I mean, you look at it. A lot of these offensive coaches, 9 out of 10 times, will figure out offensive line. I mean, that's just the way they get the name of the game. But, I just feel like, with Tomlin and with a couple other teams out there that I haven't seen them really pivot a lot on their offensive line, just literally leaves me questioning what in the world are they going to do? I don't know. But I do know that it's a situation nobody ever wants to be in. I don't ever want to be into a position to where I leave out for vacation and then now, now I'm just I'm without an offensive line. What am I to do with that? So it's, lots of these teams, if they have a lot of these offensive line problems, it is going to be harder. It's going to take a toll on your season. Okay. Make no mistake. This happens all the time. So, but yeah, you have to be able to be on your A game from there. You got to be able to overcome that. And if you can't, that in itself will become a lasting problem that will be really, really hard to solve up. So, yeah, just blows my mind. So I do want to say, I think this NFL season, I can't even wait because lots of teams, there's so many different outlooks on some teams. And I just think personally, like one team in particular, and here in Denver, the Broncos, they really do have a lot of stuff going on for them. Bo Nix going into another season. They double down on defense. Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga. This is a very good team. There's a very good team with a very good defense. Now, I have made this point that because I watched Caleb Williams go through struggles, and I've watched Michael Penix in small dosages, and I've also watched J.J. McCarthy go through an injury, and now he's officially going to be starting his season. My big thing with Bo Nix is I do think he's very talented, and Sean Payton loves his guys. Okay, he loves the kind that, like Drew Brees, can overcome adversity, can really step up their game in multitudes of ways, and it really changes the narrative in a story. So the Denver Broncos know that they've got a lot lingering on the back of their mind, but the thing is it's not going to be quite that simple. So Denver, a lot of people have actually pretty much doubled down on Denver of how they're going to play up this season. So I do think the Broncos will be a team to consider watching because offensively, they gotten some stuff good. The only thing is Pat Bryant for real? They got their young rookie receiver on top of Troy Franklin, who I've been hearing a lot of buzzes about. And then there's also, Cortland Sutton, he got his deal. And then there's Marvin Mims. So there are some receivers, don't get me wrong, but I do got to see how everything really matches itself. That's the only thing. So I do believe that this could be a situation in which Denver, they're going to have everything coming at them. I mean, whether people, doubt them, people think that they might underachieve. My only thing is that I have seen quarterbacks take a step back. I mean, we watched Jordan Love take a step back. C.J. Stroud technically didn't step back, mostly in the statistical area, but won a playoff game. So he's capable of doing that. And eventually, we'll talk about C.J. Stroud really being that quarterback. We'll add him up and into the mix of quarterbacks that I would not even pick up the phone for trade at some point. But, yeah, he's the real deal. So, but as far as for Bo Nix and company, I mean, Bo has such flashy feet, and we also know he's accurate. We know that he handles a lot of those dump-offs and also throws in a lot of those big play throws. So it's going to be interesting, but the West is going to be so competitive with Pete Carroll with the Raiders, the Broncos doubling down on defense, the Chargers with their offense and bringing back Keenan Allen, and then the Chiefs. I mean, this is going to be a wild, wild West for the taking. So I'm excited for all of it, though, guys. All right, we're heading on out. First of all, shout out to Nolan Carroll, former NFL corner who stopped by at the show today. Really loved our interview, guys. It was absolutely in just the amount of interviews I've done on this show, that definitely is my top. That's definitely one of my top. Appreciate him for coming on by and talking some football with us. Really appreciate everybody for being here up and onto the show. Enjoy the rest of the preseason here up in this week and this weekend. We will see you guys on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.